alright, so I'm being foolish. Well, alright, let people know.
Hi, and welcome to Cracking the Cryptic. And today I'm going to go through my solve of today's puzzle, which I've just done, and tell you some of the things about the puzzle that enabled me to get going, and maybe add in some of the things I've learned about the Times puzzle over the years as we go. So I'll play the video of my solve, and I'll just pause it occasionally as we go through to tell you what I was thinking about while I was solving it. So we'll start with one across. Now, as so often, one across is a long answer, 13 letters, all one word, and it's a long clue. And what that implies to me is that there's quite likely to be a lot of bits of different wordplay, at least 3 or 4 bits of different wordplay going on. That, in turn, is going to make it quite hard to get a grip on the clue. So unless there's something fairly obvious, it's not necessarily a good bet to start on. So despite how useful it would be to get 7 different starting letters for down clues, and that really would be very helpful, it's not something I'm going to really focus on unless I can really get going on it. Now, as I read the clue, case of equerry, and I've got no further than that, and I already assume that's giving me the letters EY, because this phrasing case of I've seen used in crossword clues before to refer to the outside of a word. So, and equerry is very unlikely to have a useful short synonym that's going to go into the clue. So EY looks very likely to be coming from case of equerry. And it says case of equerry covering up certain bet on horse. I just don't know what all that means. And then fraudulent practice. Now, given that fraudulent practice looks like a definition, and given that we think that the beginning of the clue was wordplay, it really looks like fraudulent practice will be the definition. But there must be quite a few long words meaning fraudulent practice, and all I know is that there's EY around something somewhere in this answer, and that's not all that helpful. Apologies for the knocking from next door. I don't know what sort of work is going on in the offices next to ours. So as you can see, I didn't spend long on that, and I moved straight to one down. One down says a simple logo designed for urban complex. And again, it seems extremely likely a simple logo designed. Designed looks like an anagram indicator. And here's the first interesting tip. I have learned that Times crosswords aren't allowed to have more than 6 anagram clues in them each day. And anagrams are often the place to go for a start on wordplay. And when you're cold solving, when you're solving without any letters in the grid, it's often very helpful to know what the wordplay is doing in a clue. And here we can see designed, which is suggestive of an anagram. Before that, we have a simple logo, which is 11 letters long. It kind of seems that they're quite useful letters. And then after that we have for urban complex, and that looks like a definition. So I'm 99% sure, having read that clue, that I'm looking for an anagram of a simple logo to mean an urban complex. And let's see how long it takes me. From about 10 seconds, it didn't take me long to figure out megalopolis. Now that's not necessarily, paused it. I'll pause it again there. I'm a bit late. We'll put in that answer. But megalopolis didn't occur immediately, but certainly polis was something possible because of metropolis being an urban complex. And when you're looking at a long anagram, it often helps to work out what the likely ending is going to be. So it could have been an ism or a polis. There aren't many letters to go into, and you couldn't have an ing or a I don't know what an urban complex might be. I did start thinking about sort of multiplexes, which isn't quite the same thing, and but that may have led me into the mega from multi somehow. So I don't quite know how my brain was working. It obviously did it quite quickly, but that was what I was doing when I was solving that. Now 8 across, 4 letters, and with a G, the second letter, very helpful. There's not many words that will fit that. And the clue begins Old Oath. So I was immediately thinking of egad. The way the wordplay works is that say translates to eg, as in, for example, and then A is A, and damn originally is the letter D, and that gives you egad. And what I then do is work on these across clues that I've got letters for. Now, as I say, if I come up with any likely anagrams, it's worth spending a bit of time on those, because anagrams are often the easiest form of wordplay. Now, as I suggest, there's only 6 anagram clues allowed in the Times each day. I don't honestly know if that's 6 whole anagram clues or 6 clues with any bits of anagrams within them. I haven't ever done an inventory to check. And, you know, you can put that down as a rumour at the moment, because I'm not sure it's right. I have also learnt there's only ever going to be one hidden answer. That's where the word is actually hidden in the clue, and some indication of that, either forwards or backwards each day. And again, that's a kind of useful bit of information, especially if you've done that clue. It's not something you should consider for anything else. And another classic Times rule apparently is that living people don't get mentioned. So no matter how likely you think it is when it says singer or an artist that it's someone who's still alive, it won't be them, with the one exception being the Queen of England, who regularly appears in the crossword as ER, and she's allowed to appear, but nobody else. And I'm not necessarily going to speculate on why that is. Especially as these days reputational damage can occur to people who are allowed to feature into the paper, but that's the way it goes. So worth knowing those things for the future. So after egad, I have a look at 10 across, which is 3-5 with an L second. So that first word almost certainly has to be all or old. Fair though one-sided, and I think I pass on that. And move on to 13 across, which says stuffed like a koala, perhaps. And that almost wasn't cryptic for me, especially with the P second of a 2-letter word at the start. Up is obviously going to be right. And as soon as I've seen either, well, especially like a koala, perhaps, but even stuffed, I'm thinking of the phrase up a gum tree, which would fit that 2, 1, 3, 4 enumeration. And that clearly can mean like a koala, literally. It might be living up a gum tree, but it can also mean stuffed in the sense of in trouble. So that's very much what Simon calls a write-in for me. You know, as soon as I've seen the clue, I know that that's the answer, and in it goes. And it's worth just letting your brain go with this sometimes. 17 across I couldn't see. We'll come back to that. 20 across I couldn't see, although ultimately mourners does suggest the letter S. 2 down I struggled with for a bit, and I mean, again, it's probably 20 or 30 seconds rather than ages, but reporting to Cardinal Newman, umpteen leaders upset. Now, leaders is suggesting that you need the first letters of some of the words in the clue, and I kind of worked on the letters before, the words before leaders, giving the letters R, T, C, N, U, and that didn't really work, especially with the D in the answer that we've got in the grid. I am aware that cardinal could mean one of the cardinal numbers or even the colour red, but it took me a little time to piece together that the leaders of umpteen and Newman and red all upset, so red NU and then turned upside down, worked out to be a word that could mean reporting to. But I did eventually figure it out, and under went in. And that restricted what 10 across could be for me. So 10 across, as I say, the clue was fair. The clue's fair though one-sided. You can see here, I thought, Well, the only phrase I could think of beginning all R is all round. And that could just about mean fair. If you considered something all round, you might be considering it fairly. One-sided, I thought this might, very quickly thinking about it, I thought this could be a reference to the classic old joke about what shape has two sides, a circle, because it has an inside and an outside. And I thought maybe it was something to do with that. And I thought I didn't really understand it and filled it in. And then when I got 3 down, I realized all round wasn't actually right. And I wasn't that shocked because I hadn't, as I say, understood it, having filled it in. 3 down says doodah, fine and tacky. Now, it's only a couple of days ago we were discussing words for things you don't know the name of. We had doobry in the puzzle then. And I mentioned that there are things like thingamajig, what's it, what not, and thingamy. And thingamy can either be clued as thin gamey or thin gummy. And here it is. Doodah, fine and tacky. Fine is thin, tacky is gummy. And the answer is thingamy, which is the word like doodah for something you can't think of the name of. And that corrects 10 across for me into all right, which means fair. And of course, one-sided, if it's all right, there's nothing left in a way. So that's fine. I moved on to 4 down. And I had the wrong idea for this in my head as well. 4 down says guzzler eating seconds gets support. Well, seconds could be the letter S, or it could be Mos, M-O-S, as in see you in a mo is in a second. So, I don't know, the guzzler looks like the definition, although support could be the definition. And I thought about monster, but then I thought of booster, which would be S in a real word, booter. And it would mean a support. A booster would be giving support. So I was quite confident it would be booster, but possibly scarred by having done all round wrongly a moment ago. I didn't fill it in because I just couldn't see why it was right. I wasn't sure why a guzzler would be a booter. And I think I passed on that for now and realised I had quite a few letters, had a go at 9 across, which didn't work out. Light, visibly green, ponder heading off. Well done if you can get that from just the eye. And I went back to 1 across, and now remembering my EY surrounding something, I know the word mountebankery, which is acting like a mountebank who's a kind of fraud. It's quite an old word, but a banker can be a bet, and that works quite neatly. I've done 7 down, but I still can't work out 4 down or 9 across, even with those extra letters. So move on to 5 across. Permission to house parent, one of no fixed abode. Well, there the definition's very helpful. One of no fixed abode is someone who is a wanderer, so a nomad is likely to be the answer. And then I can see ma in nod, which is what's permission to house parent saying. Couldn't see 6 down. Again, a very long clue, lots of bits of wordplay. Didn't fancy that at this time with just an E. Still couldn't do 9 across. I could think of a few words that would fit, like innominate and enumerate, but they didn't seem to fit the definitions. And then 11 across, hearts captured by artist with a flower. Well, again, I know it's not going to be a living artist for the reasons mentioned, so Dahlia is a flower that I know fits and has got an H in, so Dali I can then see is the artist, and A is A for the second time in the puzzle. And that gives me the first letter of 12 down. Now, if I could get this, I've got letters in a lot of answers again. So I had a look at it and was prepared to have a think about it. Wearing underwear, one means to access study. Well, wearing is likely to be in, and then underwear. The 2 short underwears that you often see are a bra or a vest. Sometimes you see them together for the word bravest, which is quite amusing, 2 forms of underwear making bravest. A word that's got nothing to do with underwear, obviously. But I thought about in bra, not many words would begin with that. But then I did think of invest. And then I could see that study might be investigate, and one means to access might be I for one, and gate for means to access. So that was a useful solve and likely to be very helpful. So in goes investigate, and I had a look at 16 and couldn't see what that was. Boy or girl with a word of support. I'd forgotten I'd had a look at 17 before and didn't get that. So on to 18, and here the definition's got to be very helpful. A symptom of jaundice. Well, about the only thing anybody knows about jaundice is that it makes your skin go quite yellow. So yellowness works very well there. There's an anagram of swollen with yes around it, which is defined as certainly. Then back to 6 down, and this is where I do kind of have an advantage. Not only reasonable general knowledge, some of it around sport, but also I can kind of see the E at the beginning, N at the end, H in the middle, and Northern European city looks like the definition. And it didn't take me long to think of Eindhoven, which might not be your first thought for a Northern European city. It's got Hove in there as well, which is the English seaside town. So then I'm kind of able to go back and have a go at the rest of the words in the top half that I hadn't done. 9 across turned out to be illuminate, using ruminate with its heading off. And 4 down was bolster, not booster after all. And of course a bolter is a guzzler, and bolster is a slightly better word for support than the booster I'd thought of. So then I move on. 14 down's got an anagram of Gatto in it, and it's a country, so Guatemala came to mind. 15 down I couldn't do. That's quite a difficult clue here. Spinner a long way off. Old flat surface beginning to turn. A very cricket sounding clue, but of course nothing to do with cricket, as you would expect, given that sort of surface. In fact, spinner a long way off is the definition, and then old provides... And in fact, I think old comes into the definition, so spinner a long way off, old is one definition, then is the definition. Then old provides one letter, flat surface begins... Oh no, I've got it, sorry to mislead you. Right, the first old provides 2 letters, the next old provides 1 letter, flat surface provides 5, and beginning to turn provides the last letter. So it's quite a made up of several elements clue there, and I certainly didn't get that immediately. I needed a couple of other letters to help. I was able to finish off 17 across, which is pleat without its final letter. 20 across was another anagram with that S from mourners and aunt. To the wake there was quite a cryptic definition, referring to ships who make a wake out of the back end of the ship, which is the stern. So if you're to the wake side of a ship, you're astern of it, which is a pretty oblique definition and very well worked into a clue that seems to be about mourners travelling to a wake for a funeral. Very clever clue, neatly put together and quite hard to disentangle for the solver as well, so very successful. 22, learner in pass, papers outstanding. It helps to know that over the last few years it's become quite common to see papers in a clue meaning ID. So I was thinking of words for outstanding that end in ID, and splendid came to mind and was the right answer. Now, 24 across. As I do so often, as you'll be working out, really I'm looking at what I've got in the grid, and it's a 4-letter word ending in A hyphenated to a 6-letter word. And it looks like the definition could be spirit, but more likely to appear either wretched or figure appearing wretched or something like that. And I'm afraid that the whole way I did this was to look at that and realise that flea-bitten fitted both the definition and the grid. I'm not sure even... Oh yes, I did work out that spirit knocked back was an elf backwards at the start, so that much I checked at the time. the rest of the wordplay I can now see slightly translates to a bit and figure to 10. So that enables the rest of the answer to go in. And now, 26 across the dubious homophone. Sorry. What's happened there? We've gone full screen for some reason, don't know why. There we go. Okay, sorry. 26 across, sounding natural, laugh heartily. Clearly the clue is saying that the definition is laugh heartily, and the answer sounds like a word that can mean natural. Well, I'm obviously lucky that the Times only recognises RP, received pronunciation, as an accent. If you're American, or if you're from anywhere in the north of Britain or Ireland, raw and raw won't be homophones for you. You'll pronounce one of them raw and the other one raw or similar. But you've probably heard enough of Londoners and BBC English, as it used to be called, to know that raw and raw could be homophones, but it's clearly a bit easier for me. And now with all these letters, I could have a quick look at 27 across, but I can't solve it. And it's clear that I've got so many letters for the remaining downs that they ought to be a lot easier. I was still struggling to see 15 down, which you may have worked out earlier, turns out to be exoplanet. 19 down after that, the letters L, S and T in the grid, they first made me think of Lusatia, which is a region from classical times, but then I remembered that even though it says nation in the clue, it's likely to be a modern nation these days, and Lesotho fits the bill. Leo is 1 in 12 in that, one of the signs of the zodiac. Nails and Norma are fairly straightforward clues, as is let. And then the last one across, again, it's the letters in the grid that are most helpful here. Establishment, by the way, is kind of another slightly subtly worded definition. Can't fear moves to host game, so it's an anagram of can't fear with some sort of game inside, which in this case turns out to be sport. And the answer for that establishment, by the way, is transport cafe, the way being a road. So there we go, that's the puzzle finished in about 5 minutes and 18 seconds. Again, it had felt as quick as the ones I've done recently on the vlog, but for once the time was quite quick for me, like a minute quicker than the ones you've seen me do recently. I think it certainly makes a difference if I'm talking at all during the solve. It slows things down a little bit, so you get to see a slightly quicker time if you just watch the solve as I did it. I hope that's been of some use to you. A few little kind of secrets that I've picked up over the years of what you can expect to see in the puzzle. I don't think there's all that much recherche vocabulary there. Mountebankery is obviously a bit of an unusual word, and exoplanet a slightly scientific word, but the rest is reasonably accessible general knowledge, I would have thought. Maybe not Eindhoven if you're solving from America or so on, but the rest of it's fairly straightforward. And nice puzzle, you know, that there was some good clues. I thought that clue for a stern was especially clever, and really quite enjoyable. Thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you again on Cracking the Crypt.
Well, alright, so I'm being foolish. Well, alright, let